Welcome to From the Shed End podcast, episode 61, with myself, TDOT, and Theo. How you doing?
Well, as ever, Chelsea just ruining my mood every weekend. But football aside, Chelsea aside, sun is shining in London, so I've had a decent weekend and can't complain. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Very similar to yourself. Obviously, being a Chelsea fan, it's stressful. It's a roller coaster. It's been a roller coaster season. Let's be honest. It's been probably one of the most craziest seasons I think we've had as Chelsea fans, anyway. But it's almost over. We've got some good news. Let's start on the good news. Let's start on the positive. I think Todd Bohely coming into the club. An agreement was signed, I think, Friday last week. An announcement Saturday, early hours of Saturday morning, 20 to 2 or something like that, that the announcement was officially made by Chelsea that there was some deal in place, an agreement, and a deal should be completed, confirmed by the end of May for Todd Bohely and Clear Lake Capital, Mark Walter as well, to be a part of that as well. There's some good interesting points in there in terms of that sort of Glazer clause. So they're calling it the Glazer clause in the deal as well, which basically means that they can't take money at the club for the next 10 years, which I think is a very good move, whether that's a Roman move or whether that's just the government or the club itself. But what's your thoughts on the takeover? We haven't really spoke about it for obvious reasons, because we don't want to be like any other channel who just reacts to every bit of news that comes out. But what's your thoughts on now what looks like Todd Boehly will be spearheading the new ownership at Chelsea?
It's more a relief, if anything. I think we've been in a situation since mid-March now, so it's really dragged on for a lot longer than we thought. And all those scary rumours, even I know they were just rumours that we were about to go into liquidation come end of May. We won't be able to sign any players, sort out contracts, which we kind of wanted during that period. But had that dragged on into the summer, it would have been a bit of a ball ache for us. So I'm really pleased that it's all done. The actual profile of Todd Boehly, I like him. I like him already. The fact he kind of attended a couple of Chelsea games, particularly that Chelsea Madrid game at home, he seems to be quite motivated and committed to the club. He seems to have already built quite a good rapport with the fans. I like the fact that him and this consortium have said that they will provide a 1.75 billion, I think, to redevelop the Premier League club. The facilities around Stamford Bridge, Cobham, the women's team, Kingsmeadow, the youth team, and the continued funding of the Chelsea Foundation. So there's a lot of good points there within the takeover. I'm still a bit unsure about this Clear Lake Capital private equity company from California. It's always a bit dodgy having a private equity company be involved in the ownership of a club, but only time will tell with that. And I think there's something else in that takeover contract that was he's not allowed to sell the club for at least 10 years, I believe. So he'll be the owner of the club or co-owner for the next 10 years or so. So hopefully it goes well. But just seeing his reaction and his passion at the Chelsea Wolves game was a good starting point for me. So fingers crossed, it's just it goes from strength to strength from here.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, like you, didn't really take much notice to any of the other sort of potential buyers or bidders at the time, and for the obvious reason that I'm going to put my hand on my heart and just say I don't know. I'm not clued up enough to talk about in depth like a lot of other people were, and even with Todd Boehly, I can go out there and say I don't know a lot about him. I just, from what first impressions, which is what I usually go on with everyone and anyone, is the fact that, like you said, he attended games prior to the announcement being made. Even Saturday, I thought him being there, the passion that he was showing, the fact that we went on to concede a last minute sort of goal, and the draw, and just that sort of expressions, and maybe that is all for the cameras, I don't know, but just to see that someone, an owner, we haven't had an owner in the stands for how long, so just to see someone in the stands, to be able to go there, support the club that he's now part of as well. For me, I mean, only time will tell. I think only time will tell. I would expect a marquee signing, maybe someone big coming in. I don't know who that's going to be, whether that's going to be this season or the next couple of seasons, but I would expect not a rebuild. I think the rebuild's a wrong term to use, but I do think there needs to be a clear sort of steer on what happens next now. I think this part now for me is more crucial than who was taking over. because we have to get this part in terms of recruitment strategy, scouting. A lot of that sits underneath now what is Todd Boehly and Clear Lake and whoever else. All of that sits underneath it is the part that we have to, if we don't get that right, the next 10 years could be very testing in terms of being a Chelsea fan. Can you see a marquee, a sort of big name coming in the summer this season? Well, next season?
I think this morning I was just flicking through Twitter and I saw that Jules Koundé, his name is being mentioned again as the big marquee signing of the summer. And I think people who have listened to us before know how we feel about him, even though we probably haven't watched him as much as we should. But he isn't the ideal Rudiger replacement. I'd much rather maybe a more experienced Premier League centre-back, but I'm sure we'll talk about our transfer targets coming the summer months. But I think Jules Koundé is probably the logical one. Tchouaméni are probably the second favourite, and then probably Declan Rice being the name that will be mentioned a fair bit this summer. But I just see West Ham playing very, quoting some ridiculous prices. So that might be a bit of a far-fetched option for us. But Jules Koundé seems like the logical one, and he seems like he's desperate to leave Sevilla at the moment, like he was last summer. So should he and his agent push for a move away, it should happen. But I don't like judging players before they arrive, but there's something tells me that he's not the ideal Rudiger replacement.
150 million is what I'm being told for Declan Rice as well, which I'm gonna go out there and say this actually, that I personally think poor Pogba on a free transfer who's turned down Manchester City, I'd take him on a free.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not free. I mean, his wages are astronomical, but the London City living might appeal to him, and he's definitely obviously leaving Manchester United. It looks like he's turned down Manchester City according to the Athletic this morning. So there's not, I mean, maybe PSG, Real Madrid,
Juventus,
Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really been the biggest fan of Pogba. I think the way I describe him, he's got like a switch, and he just chooses when he wants to play well or not. And that's kind of like that attitude and that ego he has. That being said, though, when I watch the French national team and how well he plays alongside Kante, it's ridiculous. He's ridiculously good in that role, and I don't think he's been blessed to have a good partner like Kante at Manchester United. You look at all the midfield partners he's played alongside: Fred, McTominay, Matic. They're not Kante's, they're not Kovacic's. So, like you said, it could be a possibility, but do I see him coming to Chelsea? I don't think so. I think his wages will be way too high, and I think his age as well. If we can get a player maybe that's more than a couple of years younger in Tchouaméni, who's got a lot more potential, maybe a lot more discipline as well, then I think that'd be probably a more reasonable option as well.
Be interesting. I'm looking forward to the summer. I think the summer window, maybe not this one, maybe the next one after the World Cup, the following season after next, I think will be a telling sign as to where we're going to go, what direction, the plans. I'm interested around the sort of investment into the academy, like you mentioned, the women's team, the Chelsea Foundation as well. I think that's it's almost continuing the work that Roman put in for 19 years. So I'm interested to see how that goes as well. But let's get back to the football. It's been a bit up and down, more down than up. I don't want to go all the way back to, I think the last episode we did might be West Ham. I think, was it West Ham, the game, a West Ham game potentially?
Might be. But it's probably been the reason why we haven't recorded since then.
It's very true. It's been difficult, and I want to get your thoughts on as to why. Some people are blaming Thomas Tuchel in terms of the tactical decisions that he's made, of some of the substitutions that he's made as well. But what do you think's happened over the last, the West Ham, Manchester United, Everton, those kind of games where we've just kind of gone a bit downhill, and we just haven't looked to Chelsea defensively as well. We just haven't looked like a team that can defend against Everton of all teams as well. You look at them, Man United, games that we should win, winnable games. But we just haven't got them over the line. So what do you think's gone wrong?
I think just complacency, arrogance. I do question some of Tuchel's tactics, particularly on Saturday, bringing Sarr on for the last 5-10 minutes. That didn't make sense at all. I do think when you play a team like Everton, which is actually what worries me about when we play Leeds on Wednesday, is I feel like there's this part of these teams who are fighting for relegation. They seem to want it more to stay up than a team who's fighting for top four. That's why I'm really, really worried for the game on Wednesday. I don't think we'll win it. I really don't think we will. Ellen Road's not an easy stadium to go to. You know how big the rivalry is with Leeds. I really worry for that game. And if we can't beat Leeds, we can't beat Everton, do we deserve top four? No, absolutely not. I'm a Chelsea fan. I'll be pissed off, but like we do not deserve it. It's simple. Look at how good Spurs played against Liverpool at times. They probably deserve it over us at that stage. But it annoys me to say that as a Chelsea fan. But you can't beat Leeds. You can't beat Everton. Teams who you look at the profile of their players and it's rubbish. If I'm completely honest. You look at that Everton side we played a week ago. Their starting 11 is players that have been signed by 5 or 6 different managers and are just still lingering around the squad. In credit to Lampard, I think Everton actually were a better team against us last Saturday. And then against United, against Old Trafford, again, not taking our chances, complacency, which was the same situation with Wolves on Saturday. That spell after the second Lukaku game was one of the best football I've seen Chelsea play, but did we score? No, we didn't. Big chances for Werner, for Kovacic, for all those players, and they didn't take their chances. And then we give them a golden ticket to come back into the game. They take it, and then they score an equaliser. And that's why I dread these games at times. Like even you go 1-0 up, you go 2-0 up. Are you happy? No, because you just know that we're going to invite them back into the team until we sort out that kind of mental resilience to just kill off games or even defend leads. We're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to go anywhere in the Champions League. We're not going to fight for top 4 next season. Should we be in the Europa League? I'm not sure what's that's going to happen, but I just think it's a mix of arrogance, complacency, and some questionable tactics from Tuchel.
Yeah, I think especially, I mean, we'll talk about the Wolves game slightly in a minute, but I do think some of the subs haven't made sense to me. I think a lot of it comes down to silly mistakes. Even in the Everton game, I think that was probably one of the worst defensive displays from Chelsea that I think I've seen in a while. It was poor, really poor. Everton were a team, I think I said in the match preview, that were going to be up for the game. You know, they're fighting, like you just said, they're fighting for survival in the Premier League. They very much like what you just said about Leeds. You know, they're down there, and when you're down there, you know, 3 points is like a cup final. It's almost like every game for Leeds and Everton now will be cup finals, and it's just who wants it more on the day. I do think going to Goodison Park is I mean, we've not had the best of luck there anyway, but the team that they put out, the team we put out, we should not be. It goes back to what I said, and I know he's the club captain, and I'm not just blaming him because I could blame all the 11 players, but I just think sometimes you've got to take out certain players, bring them in. I thought even bringing in Malang Sarr against Wolves was just. I mean, if Chalobah, which I understand was expected to play in the Premier League 2 game, the development squad game on the Sunday, why is he on the bench on Saturday? Because you can't bring him on. I mean, you can, but if you bring him on Saturday, he's not playing on the Sunday. So I don't get that. You know, there's talk about Alonso and the bust up with Thomas Tuchel. I mean, that must happen across every football club, every manager, every player at some point must have a disagreement with their manager. So, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Alonso, you know, last game at Chelsea, not being able to continue his career at Chelsea after this. He might leave. I just think it's one of those things. It happens. It's internal. You know, I'm sure Thomas Tuchel will brush it under the carpet if there's anything major. I expect to see Alonso in that team on Wednesday. But I just think going back to that Wolves game, it was just, like you said, you know, going 2-0 up doesn't mean anything as a Chelsea fan. And we don't have anyone clinical enough in front of goal to kill a game like Man City did, or, you know, the way Brighton did against, which is shockingly surprised me saying it, but Brighton, who, you know, killed United. We don't have anyone who can do that. And being 2-0 up used to be, right, we got 2 goals, we can sort of enjoy the game. But when you see the way that we let those goals in, I mean, the people were blaming Kovacic for one of the goals on Saturday. And for me, it's the team. It's not individual players that are making these mistakes. It's the way we're playing as a team for me. But give me your thoughts on Lukaku, because I think there was talk before the game. I kind of got from what Thomas Tuchel said on the Friday in his press conference that he was going to start the game. For me, he played very, very well. I thought he made some brilliant runs. He won the penalty. I thought to take the second goal on the way he did was brilliant. My only downside and criticism to that is we haven't seen it enough this season, which is what's killed us all season. But what was your thoughts on Lukaku in the game?
I thought that was the one positive from Saturday, was Lukaku's performance. Like you said, he won the penalty. He scored the penalty with a lot of confidence. He's the one who picked up that ball. I mean, obviously, Mount, Jorginho, Havertz aren't on the pitch, so maybe he's the logical penalty taker between him and Werner. His second goal, like you said, that's something we haven't seen enough this season. He didn't even take a touch. He just let the ball roll in front of him and then tuck it into the corner, which was a brilliant finish. And then even after that, the way he kind of got the crowd going, for those who weren't at Stamford Bridge or weren't able to catch the game, every single person at Stamford Bridge was chanting his name again, simply because we know he's going to be here next season. We know he's still got a part to play for Chelsea. And every single match-going Chelsea fan still wants him to do well. He's still that same guy who was here when he was 18 years old and looked at Stamford Bridge and cried. And I don't think that changes. Of course, there was that whole interview period during the Christmas time, but sometimes, like you said, we just have to brush that under the carpet and move on. And I do think he's going to be here next season. I do think he's going to pick up some form, and particularly if he plays like he did against Wolves. But the question is the consistency. My one thing I did want to say is, since the interview, I think that was his best performance in a Chelsea shirt. And maybe he needed a game like that where he scores 2 goals just to pick up some form. And I actually would start him against Leeds on Wednesday night. I would start him against Leeds, potentially even in the FA Cup final. I think it's completely, honestly, if you've got a 97 million pound man who's just scored 2 goals, you start him. And we know what Lukaku is capable of. He scored 30 goals in Serie A, and we'd like to joke that Serie A is a bit of a farmers league, but it's not. If I'm honest, it's not a farmers league. So I think now that he's slowly maybe he's admitted that it took him time to adapt to Tuchel's tactics. He spoke to The Athletic a couple of weeks ago and admitted that. But now he just needs to kind of man up, take his chances, score goals, and participate in these type of performances for the team. But no, that was the one positive from Saturday, was Lukaku's performance.
What's your thoughts on obviously the news that broke over the weekend around Marcus Alonso and Thomas Tuchel and not seeing eye to eye, and the reason he was subbed off? What's your thoughts on that? Because I mean, there's obviously a lot of rumours going around that he's played his last game for Chelsea now. We won't see him again this season. He'll be going to Barcelona in the summer. New owners coming in, there could be a conversation there to be had. But what's your thoughts on the initial? He has to play against Leeds on Wednesday.
I mean, initially when he got subbed off at half time, I think 4 or 5 minutes before half time, he went down went down to the ground and was holding his leg. So I thought, okay, he's come off injured. It looked like quite a bad injury. He stayed on the ground for a couple of minutes. And then I just read last night that it was a bust up at half time, which there could be a bit of truth in there. You know what happened after the West Brom game last season with Lampard, and then he never featured again. But that being said, we've got 3 really important league games still to come. We've got an FA Cup final on Saturday. We don't have that many options. We don't have any options at left wing back. Our other options are Kennedy, Azpilicueta, and Sal Niguez. We don't have the privilege of having Chilwell back in the squad, and Emerson Palmieri still on loan at Lyon.
Yeah.
So we do need him. So I think one of the two, whether it's Tuchel or whether it's Alonso, needs to just swallow their pride and apologise and admit that they messed up, and there's still a huge part to play this season. Maybe the owner can play a part as well, but we can't afford these type of internal conflicts at this stage of the season. So it kind of does worry me slightly as a Chelsea fan, and I think Tuchel, I personally think he will be dropped against Leeds, but then may feature in the FA Cup final, just as a small punishment, a bit like the Kepa situation, like the Lukaku situation. But no, we just can't afford to not have him feature before the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it must happen in every club. I think it's an internal situation that somehow is, if it's true, I mean, it could just be the fact that he's come off injured. Chelsea Twitter's been like this season, where one person says something and it's the truth, and it turns out that it's not. So I think it's one of those where, for me, he has to start against Leeds. I think one of the bonuses for Leeds is obviously they've lost Luke Ayling for the rest of the season now. I think for the red card that he picked up yesterday, he's a very crucial player for Leeds. But I just think, who plays there? Who plays at left back or left wing back? Do you put Kennedy? Do you trust Kennedy as left back? Do you put Azpilicueta there and play Reece James at right wing back? Do you put Sal Niguez there, who I didn't think had the best of games when he came on? I mean, these games now, we joke about 3rd place, 4th place, and Tottenham, Arsenal, but I think Arsenal 1 point behind us now. Big game coming up on Thursday in their game, North London derby. We're going into these games now. We shouldn't be in a position where we're sort of looking at 4th place and thinking we might get 4th. We should have 3rd place wrapped up nicely. If you think back to the Everton game, United, those games where we should potentially be talking about 9 points out of those 3 games, United, Everton, and Wolves. 9 points. We should be going into the FA Cup final in 6 days with not that much pressure. I just think Alonso, he has to start for me. I think if it's a case of someone's got to just say sorry and they've got to go back to training today, then they should be doing that now as we speak. But overarching question, I suppose, but do you see him still at the club next season? I mean, there's been talk about Barcelona. He wants to go back to Spain. Do you see that happening?
I mean, we can't really afford to lose him at this stage as well. I don't think there's no date on Ben Chilwell's comeback. Like we spoke about so many times, it could be September, it could be October, but will he be fully fit by then to match fitness? Probably not. So we're looking realistically November, December, and that's the World Cup period. So he might not feature a lot then. He might not get picked for England. Emerson might come back. Do you trust Emerson to be our starting left wing back next season? Probably not. And he's actually been performing very, very well. I'm looking back at that game at the Bernabeu. He was my man of the match for me.
Yeah.
And very unlucky. There was a game recently he was very unlucky not to score in. I mean, he put in a great assist for Pulisic against West Ham. He's been contributing a lot. And he's a Premier League experienced player. And can we afford to sell him, bring back Emerson, and not have kind of a number one left wing back until Chilwell recovers? Probably not. So I think we got like you said, they're going to be training this morning at Cobham. I reckon Tuchel needs to call him into his office, or Alonso needs to go up towards Tuchel, and they need to have a gentleman's conversation. And like I said, one of them needs to just swallow their pride and apologise, because this can't be happening until end of May.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I just want to share this with you and with everyone. But this is exactly what we're dealing with at the moment.
Why are you bringing this up?
If we were to lose at Leeds and Tottenham were to beat Arsenal, which I think is doable, we could be 5th by the time we are next in Premier League action. I mean, it's just, surely, I mean, I don't want to be the one to say it. I want to be positive and optimistic, but surely we do not throw away the Champions League qualification spots at this late stage in the season. It's ridiculous to even think that we might end up playing Europa League football next season with a new owner coming in. I mean, it's not even worth thinking about. But you look at these games here, Leicester after the FA Cup final, and then obviously you've got the final game of the season against Watford, who you would expect us to beat Watford, and Leicester as well, being 2 home games, brilliant. But going into those there, what you can see now off the back of hopefully an FA Cup win, surely that's 6 points at the end of the season.
You say surely, we've been saying that since the start of the season. Surely we'll beat Brentford. Surely we'll be doing this. Surely we'll...
Optimism.
I'm not optimistic at all. I'm really not. I can see us dropping points to Leeds and Leicester, maybe beating Watford. And on paper, these are probably the 3 easiest games. You look at their domestic form, you look at Watford, who are already relegated, you look at the quality of the players and that Leeds have. On paper, they are easiest games, but Wolves should have been a really easy game. Wolves have nothing to play for. We made things really difficult for ourselves. Same with Everton, same with United. I think United, for their first time in God knows how long, they lost 5 away games in a row. And we've struggled. We've really made things hard for ourselves at Old Trafford. I'm really not optimistic, and I try to avoid thinking about the Premier League table, even looking at it. But I'm not optimistic.
I want to quickly talk about the FA Cup final, which obviously is massive for us. We they like to call it, what do they call it? The Anfield of the South or something is what it's dubbed, or something like that. But I mean, look, Liverpool are beatable. We got to see that almost at the weekend with Tottenham, who I thought played really well. I'll give them the credit. They played really well against Liverpool. Going into an FA Cup final, I do think form, obviously they're looking for their quadruple, but I do think all of that goes out the window. You made a good point earlier on around Lukaku, who I would start against Leeds and I would start against Liverpool in the FA Cup. I don't think Lukaku is a player that can come on and impact a game. I know he did it against Liverpool in the League Cup final, but I just mean in terms of how he's playing now. You just mentioned the 2 goals that he scored. You want to take that form into a tough game at Ellen Road. Maybe bring him off if we win it, if we're comfortably winning 3-0, 4-0. bring
So
him
we
off.
did against Wolves. We brought him off, and then it all went wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That was another really strange sub at the weekend. Actually, I forgot to bring that one up. But going into that FA Cup final, which is crucial for us, I think it's kind of, not the deciding point of our season. But you think about if we get top four, which is what we're clinging on to now, which is strange for me to say, but clinging on to top four, we get the FA Cup, Club World Cup, Super Cup. I think it's been an okay season, considering everything that we've gone on with. What do you think? I mean, I would say it's been a relatively okay season with sanctions, with off-field stuff with Thomas Tuchel and what he's had to do in his own personal life as well.
Exactly.
The Lukaku situation didn't help early on in the season. Injuries to Chilwell, Reece James, N'Golo Kante, Matteo Kovacic has been out as well. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, we had to play a game, I think, at Molineux with 3 outfield players and 2 goalkeepers on the bench. This is what we've had this season. So going into that FA Cup final, I expect all the players to leave everything out there, in my opinion. They can't, 120 minutes, whatever it needs to be, penalties, I expect them to come home with that FA Cup. What's your thoughts going into the final?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, everything, all those things you listed, the Tuchel's divorce, the sanctions, the positive COVID test, not having a game postponed, the injuries, the Lukaku interview, the sale of the Chelsea, everything possible has gone against us this season. And then even you look at bloody Liverpool faking their COVID test, that still boils my blood. It still boils my blood. And they got their game postponed and we didn't. Everything's gone against us. And this is almost that one game. We just, like you said, we just need to leave everything on the pitch. Whoever comes on as a substitute, whether it's Kepa for the shootout, whether it's Kennedy, I don't know if he's going to play a part, but any player in that squad needs to give it 110%. And we just can't have Liverpool. We need to end their quadruple hopes on Saturday. It's simple.
Yeah, I mean, my ultimate desire or hope is we win the FA Cup. Obviously, Man City look like they should win the Premier League. Massive should. You go into that final, Champions League final.
We're all Madrid fans, aren't we?
Yeah, 100%. I personally think they will win the Champions League. Their league's wrapped up. The league is wrapped up already. I think they rested quite a lot of players last night as well.
Yeah,
I think they can do that now. They've got nothing to play for.
They had Luka Jovic up front, and I think their second choice goalkeeper in goal. I know they lost. They lost 1-0, but my point is they can do that. They can allow. I mean, Liverpool are literally going to have to go up to the wire for the Premier League. You almost think as well, are they willing to scrap this quadruple nonsense and just, not to say they're going to field a team that can't win the FA Cup final, but will they look at the remaining fixtures they've got after the FA Cup final, going into that Champions League period as well, where they want to focus on the Champions League? Maybe their mind's going to be on that as opposed to Saturday's FA Cup final. But you look at their front three, and Diaz, Jota, Mane, Salah, I mean, they're all good players, though. Yeah. You rest one of them, you can even bring in Firmino or Chamberlain, or they're all very good players. Yeah. Liverpool, their depth, and even their centre-back depth, they've got Kanate, who's hardly featured in the league, and he's a brilliant player.
Yeah.
Tsimikas is another one. So I think whoever they field on Saturday at Wembley will be a very strong 11, regardless of them thinking about the Champions League final in a couple of weeks' time. But like I said, we just need to show that we want it more. This is almost like the last bit of us. We saw Chelsea last season. We had the FA Cup final and the Champions League final. I feel like we didn't give it enough in that FA Cup final, and we handed it to Leicester, but then we gave it our all in the Champions League final. You do kind of maybe wonder if Liverpool's minds will be similar to that, but no, it's just going to be a question of who wants it more. And I think, like you said, we've been the better team over Liverpool in all 3 of our games against them this season. There'll be VAR controversy. I just know that, like there always is against Liverpool. So that's expected.
I can't agree with you more. I think even going back, just to the Wolves game, Timo Werner, goal should have been allowed. I think the offside, the Rudiger, Loftus-Cheek, I get it. I get why it was offside. But the Werner, I mean, referees just, and I'm not saying this is why we don't win games at all, but referees just need to have a bit more consistency. And it always seems like it's, maybe because I just support Chelsea, maybe I'm being biased, but it just seems like there's always a, negative sort of officiating in terms of our games. You look at the Werner, if you want to call it a foul, or was it almost he was falling already.
If you're unsure, just let the goal happen and then blow your whistle and then let VAR look at it. And they should have had a red. They should have had 2 yellows at one point. I was sat high up. I didn't see who the player was. I think it might have been Trincao, the guy who scored.
Yeah.
But I think he should have had 2 yellows. Mendy should have done better again, though.
Yeah.
He doesn't even dive. He doesn't even dive now. He just looks at the ball and then he acts all shocked when it goes into the back of the net. He's a brilliant goalkeeper, but he just needs to be a bit more. Reactive. He will never be reactive. He will never be like as good as Alisson, as good as Courtois, as good as Ederson if he carries on playing like this. I'm thinking back at a couple of those goals that went in, 2 of the 4 that went in against him against Arsenal, probably 2 of the 4 that he conceded against Brentford. He can stop those easily. Yeah. Easily.
It's true. And we've said that before. I mean, I was going to recycle your GIF that you sent, the robot one, because it's literally that again. Always is the same problem with Mendy. It's just his reactions to shots that he can save. It's just not good enough. But
that being said, he did make one big save at one point.
Oh yeah, he can pull them out the hat when he needs to. But I think when it matters as well, he just doesn't do it enough. And I think it goes back to that consistency around. Look at Alisson or Ederson or even Courtois to an extent. Those goalkeepers that when it matters, they turn up. They perform. So not to blame just Mendy. Like I said at the start of this, you could probably go through the whole 11 and pick something out of everyone's game, especially against Wolves. But let's try and end it with a bit of a positive before we do the predictions for the Leeds game. But obviously, the under-23, the development squad, managed to beat Tottenham yesterday 2-1, which means that they stay in Premier League 2 for another season, which I think is a massive achievement. It's been a really poor season. I think COVID potentially has had a massive impact, and I think a lot of the players who potentially would have been in that squad have actually gone out on loan to League One, Championship squads as well. So I think there's a lot of players that would have been in that squad that just haven't been there this season. But to still see it through and get the performance that keeps us in the Premier League 2 for another season, I think is an achievement. And obviously the Chelsea women's team yesterday managed to secure the WSL for another season as well, which is Emma Hayes showing the talent that she is as well. I thought that was a brilliant achievement there as well. I think it was close to the wire as well, because I'm pretty sure Arsenal potentially could have won the WSL yesterday as well. But yeah, I mean, coming back against Manchester United at Kingsmeadow, I think is, I don't know if you got to see the goals, but Sam Kerr, brilliant volley. Goalkeeper, I mean, their goalkeeper should definitely be doing better. I think I can definitely say that. But brilliant result for obviously under 23s and Chelsea women as well.
Definitely, yeah. No, really big achievements. I can only praise. There's so much praise you can give to Emma Hayes, but she's done a fantastic job at Chelsea, winning the title 3 years in a row now.
Yeah,
and great to see that the under 23s stayed up as well, and I think a lot of the first team players were in attendance to support them at that game, which was great. So now it's just up to the men's team to finish the season on a high, just like they have.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's do our usual predictions before we wrap up. Big game, as you said, about Leeds. Let's start with the Leeds game first. I'll go first. I think if Lukaku starts, I think it's going to be 2-1. I think he should put in another good performance. I still think maybe play Havertz and Lukaku up front as opposed to Timo Werner. Mason Mount obviously didn't feature, so you'd expect him to come back into the team as well. Maybe he's picked up a slight knock, I don't know. But yeah, I'd imagine 2-1, Lukaku maybe to get a goal. Be interesting to see about team news actually. But yeah, I'd say Mason Mount surely has to feature as well. What's your thoughts?
2-2. Nothing more to be said. We'll score and then we'll let them back into the game, just like Wolves, just like half the games off this season, and it'll be that either 2-2
performance.
Yeah, 2-2 or 1-1. But I just hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But it's just quite hard to stay optimistic right now as a Chelsea fan.
I don't blame you at all. I think we should probably do a separate preview for the Liverpool game, massive game. But initial thoughts off the back of this weekend, I'm gonna go out there and say that we are gonna win. I'm not gonna give a prediction, but I'm just gonna say we are gonna win the FA Cup. We've been the better team over the League Cup, the 2 Premier League games as well. they are beatable, Liverpool. And if you expose their weaknesses in terms of someone like a Trent Alexander-Arnold who loves going forward, but defensively there are. I mean, you saw what Vinicius Junior was doing. Well, what he will do to him in the game coming up in the Champions League final. I mean, he's going to have a field day. But what's your thoughts on the final? Are we going to bring it home?
Completely agree. They are beatable, but we're not clinical enough. We're not clinical enough. And when we are clinical, we only see it in small patches during the game.
When it matters, we are.
Even in that home game against Liverpool, we were brilliant. But that kind of just that 10, 15 minutes towards the end of the first half was okay, this is amazing. Now let's keep this up. And we didn't. Yeah. We didn't. So if we kind of just have more than, I want to say, half an hour of just playing our football, scoring goals, we can win it. But I'm not going to make a prediction. I'm just going to say it's going to go to extra time and then anything can happen after that.
It's a fair shout. For those who are listening on the audio version of the podcast, you can follow our social accounts. You should be able to see them if you're on Spotify. So you'll be able to see them on the top of the screen. We've got Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube as well. So make sure you follow and subscribe to those as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you go to Apple or Spotify and make sure you subscribe to the podcast audio version as well. Don't miss an episode. Theo, as always, thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully we have better days to come after we beat Leeds and we beat Liverpool in the final of the FA Cup. But this has been From the Shed End, episode 61. Until next time, thank you very much for watching or listening. Take care. We'll be back soon.